You need the right guide to get your VA benefits. Hey, I am Chuck the Bureaucrat, and today I want to talk about finding the right Veteran Service Officer to help you submit your Veterans Affairs claim. Now, just to set expectations up front, this video is going to focus on what a VSO is, how to find them, and some thoughts on picking the right one for you. I'm not going to get into what a VSO actually does for you because that's really a discussion for a different day. But to get things started, let's take a look at the acronym VSO because it actually has two meanings in this situation: Veterans Service Organization and Veteran Service Officer. So as you go about the process of getting help submitting your disability claim, you're going to need to find an organization and an individual officer within that organization. Now, when I went through this process of finding a VSO about a year ago, almost everybody was just using word of mouth. I mean, it is the classic military transition problem. The people who figured out their way through the maze, well, they're not around anymore to help the people who are still stuck in the maze. Okay, so first things first, you're going to want to deal with a reputable veteran service organization. And there's a couple of resources to help you. The House Committee on Veterans Affairs maintains a website that lists the congressionally chartered veteran service organizations, and they list them by their charter date. Now, as far as I can tell, these links take you to the landing page of the organization, not the part of the organization's website that actually provides veteran services. So when you get to an organization's website, there's still some navigation that you have to do to find what you're looking for. The other thing to keep in mind is that this list exists because they're congressionally chartered, not because they're convenient to work with or particularly effective. For a possibly better list, the Department of Veterans Affairs keeps a list of what they call accredited representatives. And this page actually contains three different types of representatives. You've got your veteran service organizations, but you also have attorneys and agents. So it's important to understand the role of these different types of representatives, and more importantly, when it is legal for them to charge you. Veteran service organizations are there to help you with your initial disability claim. In a lot of ways, their role is to make sure that you submit a fully developed claim so that there's no back and forth between you and the VA looking for additional evidence. The important piece here is that veteran service organizations always provide their service free of charge. Attorneys and agents, they typically provide their services after an initial decision has been made by the VA. They help craft appeals and navigate that process. But here's an important thing about these attorneys and agents. They can only charge you if they're assisting you in an appeal or in providing additional information to respond to an adverse decision by the VA. Attorneys and claim agents cannot charge you for submitting your initial claim. Okay, so the VA maintains this website where you can search by organization or individual or location. I would recommend that you not search by zip code. This search tool is not the most intelligent thing you're going to run across on the internet. And so if you put in a zip code, you're only going to get information back if there's an exact match. I recommend that you search for an individual in this top part by state. And the reason for that is because when I look up the guy who supported me, I find him in an entirely different city than where he actually was providing that support. With these tools, you should be able to make some decent progress towards getting the assistance you need. To wrap up, let's look at a few general considerations that you should consider. Number one, if you're located in the Commonwealth of Virginia, I strongly recommend that you consider using the Virginia Department of Veteran Services as your VSO. Virginia and the Veterans Administration have a long and interesting history of cooperation. They got offices on base at Fort Belvoir and at Fort Gregg Adams, what you old-timers might have called Fort Lee. And they even have an office in the Pentagon in room 1A126. Plus, to the best of my knowledge, the Virginia Department of Veteran Services is the only VSO that has the capability of submitting an electronic claim. Everybody else is going to use a paper form, and you're going to have to run it through the mail. Number two, your VSO is kind of like a tax preparer, like H&R Block or Liberty Tax. They help you fill out the paperwork and go through the process, but at the end of the day, it is your claim. They don't know anything about you that you don't tell them. And number three, I would recommend getting a VSO that you have good chemistry with. If you meet with somebody and it doesn't feel like a good fit, find somebody else. Personally, I chose to work with a VSO who had been a grumbly old NCO. I liked working with somebody who just bluntly said, listen, if you're not going to take my advice, let's not waste our time working together. That's what he said the first time I met him. Meanwhile, down the hall was a nice little old lady who didn't give any advice. She just did the paperwork, and as I understand it, with a lot less errors than the guy I was dealing with. But come on, I can check paperwork for errors. What I needed was somebody to tell me to go see the doctor. So find the right person for you. All right, so that is VSOs. And now what you need to do is understand how the VA thinks about disabilities, because it's different than the way that disabilities work under the Americans with Disabilities Act. And you should watch this video to see how concurrent receipt knits together your pension and your disability.